Hello everybody, and welcome back to some more G-Senjou no Maou, with me, Phantom's Y. So, we left off last time with the tension between Kanon and her mother growing ever more intense, and it's kind of boiling over towards Kyosuke. Kyosuke doesn't really quite know how to handle the whole situation. So, let's see what happens. After seeing Kanon off the next morning, I head to my desk. It's nearly the end of the year, and I've been neglecting my Azai Corporation work recently. There are only 2 days left before the tournament. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, and I don't know what to do. This is bad. I bought a magazine this morning after seeing Kanon's name on the cover. The article title, Azai Kanon's Connections to Underworld Crime Syndicates Revealed. Excuse me. The public has always kept its knowledge about Kanon and the Sonayama group on a somewhat tacit level. They can never prove anything, of course, but rumors have been run rampant all through the press, both online and in hard copy formats. All it takes is the slightest show of weakness or vulnerability, any opening whatsoever, and the media will jump on it. One of the pages showcased a picture of Kanon leaving my apartment with a man who looked like me. The article's twist implied that she was engaging in illicit affairs, right before a major competition, no less. One moment here. Sorry about that. Recorded a few episodes in a row here, so my voice is kind of getting a little strained, but I'm still good. An anonymous liaison had identified me as a goon involved in an organized crime syndicate. God damn it. I didn't even realize my picture had been taken. I violently threw the magazine into the rubbish bin and began to brainstorm a damage control plan. It seems that Gonzo hasn't responded to this. Last time, he barged into the editor's office and gave them a good thrashing, but this time he's just sitting on the sidelines. I see. Damn, that means he thinks this whole mess is unsalvageable. I'd planned to utilize my connections with the publisher to pressure them into changing their story, but that would be useless. Every editor in Japan is conspiring against Kanon, trying to make her into the next big scoop. Every last one of them has turned their backs on her. It wouldn't be all that big of a stretch to say that the whole country is rejecting Kanon. Instead of getting worked up over her popularity, she needs to buckle down and produce some results. But in Kanon's state. At that moment, there was a sound at the door. It was just a little past noon. Hey, aren't you supposed to be at your official practice? Even the spectators were coming to see you today, weren't they? She sulked in the doorway. Injured? What happened? It doesn't seem to be that severe. Is it really that bad? She didn't reply. I tilted my head in doubt. And collided with you? It's not particularly rare for athletes to bump into each other during practice. I'm utterly perplexed. Well, why would she do that? Kanon has a tantrum, throwing her duffel bag on the floor. I muster up my calmest voice in response. Kanon, go back to practice. The tournament is in 2 days. This time is critical for improving your program. She raises her voice and shouts at me. Her eyes become full of hostility, and she flares her nostrils. Nothing. But do you really think that you can win like that?
しょ。
She raises her voice and points at me.
前回だって転倒した後普通にやってればまず優勝できたんだよ。それくらい瀬田さんの得点は大したことなかったの。ちょっと運が良かっただけの女になんで私が負けるの？
Her reaction was too sensitive. I finally realized Kanon wasn't as confident as she let on. And because she lacks confidence, she's taking it out on me.
だいたいあの曲、この前負けたのはあの曲とコーチの作ったプログラムのせいだよ。
Only Japanese athletes will be participating in the Japan Championships. Thus, it's likely to become a one-on-one match between Seta and Kanon. Kanon never saw Seta as a threat, so it must have been quite a shock to her pride to be beaten by her. Kanon, you shouldn't fret over Seta. If you keep worrying about her, you won't win. You said so yourself, remember?
気にしてなんかないよ。
She lowered her head, but her obstinate attitude remained. Kanon, you're selfish as hell, but you've never been one to lie, and you've always kept your dignity when it comes to skating. You get what I'm saying, right? Now go back to practice. I glanced at the waist that she had been whining about and pointed to the door.
だって
She shakes her head, vexed.
今外に出たらテレビの人がいっぱいだよ。
What?
瀬田さんに怒鳴りつけてやったの。死んじゃえって。
Oh, no! No! I was dazed for a moment.
自分が悪いのにベソベソ泣いちゃってさ。
Go apologize right this instant. I stare Kanon down.
なんで？
She must have seen the anger in my eyes, as she returned fire accordingly.
だってわざとぶつかってきたんだよ。怪我するところだったんだよ。
Even if she did, what you said was wrong. Well, not that I can say anything. Look, I'll go with you. I grabbed her hand, but she shook it off.
絶対行かない。
She must be confusing me with her submissive mother.
あの子泣きながら言うの。どうしたんですかカノンさん。憧れてたのに憧れてたのにって。へこへこと尻尾ばっかり振って。
I begrudgingly listened to Kanon as her voice began to drip with resentment.
絶対謝らないからね。
She stood there like a rock, not budging an inch. I hesitate before sighing a few times. What should I do? How should I loosen Kanon's obstinate conviction? Force her to apologize or embrace her and show my affection? That seems like a real bad idea. So yeah, we'll do this one. But first we're gonna save, actually. Because I like to save at all the decision points. Just in case. I loosened up my posture and called to her. Kanon, come here.
何？
Just come here. She cautiously walks over to me. You must be tired. I wrap my arms around her neck. Calm down a little.
落ち着いてるよ。
Good. Then let's go back and apologize in a little bit. I said this casually, but it backfired.
それは嫌だよ。
Kanon started shouting with hostility again.
なんで兄さんの言うこと聞かなきゃいけないの？
What are you going off about now?
知ってるよ。兄さんだってパパの仕事手伝って悪いことたくさんしてるんでしょ？
I couldn't tell whether she was just bluffing or she actually did know.
そうなんでしょ？絶対そうだよ。
I kept my cool and replied, And what if I do? It doesn't matter what kind of person I am. If Mother Teresa were here, you wouldn't listen to her. You won't listen to anyone. And anyway, I'm not the one we're talking about here. Let me fall to hell of my own volition. Kanon hung her head and clamped her mouth shut in fright. It's true that I'm in no position to admonish anyone. So I'll just have to change Kanon's mind through my usual means. Would you be willing to compromise? I deepen my voice, as I do when I'm engaging in business negotiations. You absolutely refuse to apologize to Seta.
だから何度も言ってるじゃない。
Fine. At least go back to practice.
それは
No buts. You're out of my house one way or the other. But if you don't show up at practice, you'd better find some other place to sleep tonight, because you'll be dead to me. I finally hit her where it hurts. She shut her mouth, and her lips started trembling. What, you got a problem with that? Then get the hell out of here and get back to the arena. I'm a cruel brute beyond salvation to address my sister in this manner.
そんな兄さんは兄さんだけは味方じゃ
This isn't about picking sides, Kanon. I made a compromise. You don't have to apologize for saying bad things to Seta, but you do have to continue skating. Kanon droops her head at my conditions.
分かったよ
She picks up her bag, still looking flustered. Is this really okay? I just convinced her to keep skating. After some time, after her emotional scars have healed, maybe she will apologize to Seta. Really though, the girl should be kneeling in atonement before hitting the rink. Man, the tension is so high. That is what this game does so well to me, you know? Like, the characters are really strong and, like, they have a ton of depth to them. All the heroines and Kyosuke himself as well. But, like I know I've said this before in this Let's Play, but once it reaches those high points in the scenarios, things just really stay so dramatic and the tension runs high for a really long time. And that's one thing that visual novels do better than any other format, in my opinion. You could say the books do it, of course, you know, but I'm referring more to visual media. I'm talking about movies and television, because they're limited by their time constraints. Visual novels, they don't have that. So when they manage to grab you, to have, you know, this really dynamic situation that is built up over hours and hours and hours like this, really grips you. It can hang on. It can really get its claws into you for a long time. I love that. But anyway, I digress. The sun was about to set. I'm so very sorry about what happened earlier. I brought a few boxes of confections to Seta's practice rink and her team's offices by way of apology. When I introduced myself as Kanon's brother, everyone shot me dirty glares with a hint of disbelief. But this isn't the time to be worried about appearances. Yes, I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be taking my leave. I reconciled with them and left my contact information. When I got back to my apartment, someone suddenly called out to me.
すいません。浅井京介さんですよね。
Reporter, probably. I could guess what he was here for. Who's asking? It was a middle-aged man with some stubble on his chin. The guy claimed to be a journalist.
ちょっとお時間よろしいですかね。
Sorry. I excuse myself and try to enter the apartment, but the man latches onto my coat. I took the opportunity to scowl at him, but he's probably used to that by now. He didn't seem to be perturbed.
ほんのちょっとでいいんですよ。妹さんについてちょっとお話をお伺いしたいなと。
I wince at his pushiness, but he pushes on.
瀬田選手に死ねと叫んだそうですが。あなたから見てカノンさんはどんな妹さんなんです？
Whether I say something or not, he'll be writing bad things about her in tomorrow's news. My sister is a very kind girl. I borrowed Akimoto's words. He disregards my simple comment and shoots off more questions.
やっぱりあの性格は母親譲りだと思われますか？
If I feared nothing, or had the power to make things that I do fear disappear like Gonzo does, I would have flogged this man. Kanon loves her mother. She must be trying to cut Ikuko-san some slack. That's the only reason Kanon would tolerate running a free skate program she resents so thoroughly. She's doing everything in her power to fulfill her mother's expectations. That's why she's worked so hard all these years. I can't imagine any other reason she would relinquish her opportunity to spend Christmas Eve with me, the man she gave herself to. And to be honest, I can't blame her. If you were to ask me what comes second in my heart after my lover, I'd answer my mother, without a second thought. But this man isn't looking for a fairy tale answer like that. It appeared that he was dissatisfied with the responses given to him, as he scurried off quickly. It may be a holiday, but things are as busy as ever. I've got to pick up Kanon in a bit. I suddenly received a call from an unlisted number. This is Azai. May I ask who's calling? The The person on the other end of the line mumbled nervously before introducing herself.
私瀬田真紀子と申します。突然お電話してすみません。
No, man. That perked me up. I'm so sorry about today's mishap. Is there something you'd like to discuss with me?
いえ、
She spoke awkwardly.
カノンさんのお兄さんですよね。
Among other things? That's right. Like I said, I'm so sorry for all the trouble my sister caused.
とんでもないです。あれは私がいけなかったんです。
She continued stammering on in a flustered voice.
いきなりお電話したのは、カノンさんとたまにお食事させてもらった時に、
She talks about me?
はい、とっても楽しそうに大好きだって言ってました。
Her voice brightened up like a flower. Her manner of speech conveyed her emotion through the receiver.
それでカノンさんにとって大切な人なんだろうと思いまして、私が気にしていないということをお伝えいただければと。
I see. I'll pass that on. Thanks for going out of your way to let me know.
カノンさんは私の憧れなんです。
Her voice livened up.
ですからあさっての全国でも全力で競い合いたいなと。
In other words, she doesn't want Kanon's focus to derail.
カノンさん、何かストレスを溜めていらっしゃるようですが、大丈夫でしょうか。
Even with my cynical disposition, I heard no trace of malice or conceit in her voice. At last year's World Championships, Seta suffered a failure so devastating that Japan's prestige in the realm of figure skating came crashing down, consequently reducing Japan's competitor quota from 3 to 1. The overwhelming criticism she faced when she faced then was probably no less than that which Kanon is facing now. Yet now she's grown into someone capable of caring for others, despite the severity of her own wounds. There was only one thing to say to my sister's compassionate rival. Kanon is a very strong person. I promise she won't disappoint you tomorrow. Did she realize that I was just making excuses? Seta chose not to press the point any further.
どうもありがとうございました。カノンさんによろしくお伝えください。
After that, we ended our conversation. Anxiety began to assail me once more. Kanon is taking Seta too lightly. Kanon's jumps are only one step ahead of Seta's. However, Seta has the composure that Kanon lacks. I watched her perform many times during the finals. Even if Kanon was in peak physical condition, Seta would still give her a run for her money. Unfortunately, there's only one ticket to the Worlds this year. Will Kanon, who lacks direction in life, be able to take home the gold and make that next step? Who cares about the Olympics anyway? Who'd be satisfied with a piddly little gold medal? A devil had been nesting in Kanon's heart. It occasionally bore its sharp fangs at Seta and made Kyosuke wince more than once. It's been getting out of hand lately.
カノンちゃん、さっきの通し稽古素敵だったわよ。あれが本番だったら確実に金メダルね。
Ikiko's familiar smile flattered Kanon once again as she rested in the hallway. Who cares about the Olympics? This damn woman. Kanon wonders why she spent half her life in flashy costumes on the cold ice and glares at the individual before her. In Kanon's eyes, Ikiko is an abomination. No matter how many hostile gazes Kanon hurls upon her, she never breaks her smile. Kanon's eyes turn towards the woman, only to find her watching Kanon, her face plump like a rice cake. Ikiko didn't even seem to care that Kanon had stopped calling her mom.
あさってはいつも通りやってくれればいいのよ。そしたら念願のオリンピックは目前よ。
She was frolicking about in a way unbecoming for a woman her age. It was scary at times. Kanon suppressed her urge to ask, "Who are you?"
念願のオリンピック。
She meant to say that in her mind, but it accidentally slipped out.
そう、お母さんの夢よ。
へえ、
私が取れなかった金メダル、カノンちゃんが掴むのよ。
私が
世界の一番になるの、素敵なことでしょ。
うん。
Kanon nodded. If she didn't at least respond in some way, Ikuko would just go on and on. However, she must have been in a strange mood today, as Kanon decided to pursue the conversation voluntarily.
なんで金メダル欲しいの？
一番の名誉だからよ。
Ikuko didn't hesitate in the slightest when giving her answer.
名誉ってそんなにすごい？
いくらお金を積んでも手に入らないものよ。
私もその名誉のために頑張るべきなの？
もちろんよ。
でもそれは幸せなの？
アスリートにとってそれ以上の幸せなんてないわ。
でもそれはコーチにとっての幸せじゃないの？
私の幸せはカノンちゃんの幸せでしょ。
She said so with her eyes wide open, her voice imbued with conviction. Kanon felt disgusted with her mother. She was acting like she understood Kanon. Kanon has never heard a single positive opinion about her mother. Everyone scorns her and scoffs at her. They call her inflexible, overly self-conscious, and greedy, and say that her arrogance knows no bounds. Ikuko brags that all she does is for the purpose of taking on the role of an antagonist, all for the sake of acting as a filter to draw negative attention away from Kanon. Kanon feigned innocence and asked the person in question,
じゃあもし私が金メダル取れなかったらどうする？
取れるわよ。
もしもの話だよ。
A slight glimmer of bewilderment shone in the abomination's eyes. Like someone who had been told the earth was round for the very first time, her world began to come apart at the seams, starting with the facial expression she had used as a mask for so long.
金メダルを取れなかったら
She said with a shocked expression, as though staring at a ghost.
わからないわ。
With those short words, she revealed a glimpse of her true feelings. Kanon confidently answered her own question.
死ぬでしょ、お母さん。
Ikuko nodded with an expression that looked as though she had found nirvana.
間違いないわ。
She muttered, not even realizing that she had been called Mom for the first time in so many years. That hoarse voice gave Kanon the feeling that her mother had already put one foot into her grave, and a deep anxiety overcame her. Dark! I entered the skating rink to pick up Kanon. I thought they might be quarreling again, but Kanon stood alone in the hallway, still dressed in her costume. What happened, Kanon?
あ、兄さん。
Let's go. She looked away and nodded. Did something happen again?
何も。
Her eyes were dazed and unfocused.
ちょっとだけ嫌なこと忘れてすっきりしたいなって思ってるだけ。
And that's why you were so out of it? Still wearing her costume, she seemed to be struck with anxiety.
ねえ兄さん、
Hmm?
お昼みたいにちょっとだけ抱きしめて。
I had no reason to refuse. We embraced shortly before closing time in that empty hallway.
落ち着くよ。このまま消えちゃいたいくらい。
It's rare for you to be so sentimental.
だってもうわけわかんないんだもん。
Yeah, you said it. Her voice fawned.
あったかいね。兄さんの胸。
If my body suits you, I'll lend it to you anytime.
本当？
Sure.
じゃあ
She hesitated for a second.
今して。
Huh?
いや。
That's not what I meant. And she knows it's not what I meant. Nevertheless, Kanon's resentment runs deep enough to ask me to have sex with her.
更衣室誰も来ないよ。
She blushes absent-mindedly.
兄さんダメ
I focused my mind, which had been swept up in the moment. If I have sex with her now, it'll be like running away. Yep. Sorry, Kanon. I tried to be as gentle as possible and softly let go of Kanon. Her lingering, reluctant voice hurt my heart. Let's go, okay? Her previously warm eyes became cold in an instant. That rejection must have been rough on her.
どうかしてた私
Don't worry about it. Let's save it for when the tournament's over and done with. She heads to the dressing room with a blank expression. I'm glad I restrained myself. If I had sex with her now, her heart may have shattered completely. After she finished changing, we returned to my room, talked a little, and I put Kanon to sleep. Alright. Christmas Eve rolled around, the day that was supposed to be their date. Kanon would be going straight from the evening practice to a nursing home in the central district. I realize it's only going to take a few hours, but she really should be doing some publicity work for the day before her big competition, or should she be doing? Could this have possibly been arranged behind Coach Hilton's back? I can imagine Ikuko-san putting this together on her own. My curiosity got the better of me, so I asked Hilton. The man didn't seem too concerned about the money or politics in figure skating. He behaved like a genuine coach when I spoke with him. He told me he had allowed the gig on the conditions that it didn't get in the way of Kanon's holiday, and that she didn't mind doing it. So basically, I was right. Ikuko coaxed him into it. I can't blame him. Communicating with that hopelessly narrow-minded mother is difficult even for me.
じゃあ行ってくるね
That violent attitude from yesterday had disappeared. In its place, gloomy eyes looked up at me. I'll come pick you up later tonight. I had looked up at the address of the nursing home. We can do something to celebrate afterwards.
気使わなくていいよ
She sullenly lifts her eyebrows. Kanon was worried that the cajolery she hates so much was mixed into my words somewhere.
さ行こうかな練習中瀬田さんに気をつけなきゃ
I let slip what I hesitated to say. Seta called yesterday.
はあ
She said she wasn't angry or anything, and that it was her fault.
ちょっと何それ
Yet again, she lets out her anger.
大体なんで兄さんに電話してくるのよ私に謝るべきでしょうが
She was probably trying to give you some time to cool down. She figured I'd tell you when the time was right. But I guess I jumped the gun a little. I mean, did you forgive her the first time she apologized directly to you? No, you just lashed out at her.
だからって
So Seta is just worried about you.
どうだか
She heaves a sigh of disdain, bearing her mother's intolerance. She's nothing to sneeze at, you know.
はいはい明日思い知らせてあげるよ
Kanon runs out the door.
ついてきてくれるの
I just thought I'd watch you practice. If you don't mind, of course.
夜も私と施設まで来てくれるの
I've got plans for tonight.
なんで私と過ごすはずだったんだよね
That got canceled, so I'll be with Papa. I can't think of any two words that seem to fit together less than Christmas and Gonzo. But believe it or not, the Yakuza really gets into holiday festivities. I'll pick you up, though. She entered the arena with an air of dissatisfaction. I sit in the empty stands, staring down at the ice. The athletes change into their costumes and do the practice routine their respective coaches tell them to. I watch Kanon. She's standing near the wall, being scolded by Hilton. He's saying something about her not being into the practice. Indeed, her skating tonight seems weak and lifeless. What a truly mental sport.
あら 京介くん珍しいわね。
I'm startled by a voice behind me as it abruptly calls my name. And how are you today, Ikiko-san? Ikiko-san, who should be an outsider, stood there as if it were a matter of course.
カノンはどう？
She's not looking too good.
そうね。何が原因なのかしら。
My chest tightens in disgust.
やっぱり京介くんのお家に寝泊まりするようになったからじゃない？ほら、枕が違うと眠れないってあるでしょ？
Perhaps. Who knows? My gaze returns to Kanon. Ikiko-san doesn't seem to heed my cold attitude. What are you doing here, Ikiko-san?
何を？もちろんカノンの演技を見ているのよ。
Every day?
毎日よ。本当は私が教えてあげたいくらいなんですけどね。
Kanon is truly everything to this person.
あら大変。そろそろ休憩時間ね。
Where are you going?
決まってるじゃない。温かい飲み物差し入れてあげるのよ。
That clingy voice sent a chill up my spine. You do that every day?
どうしたの？当たり前じゃない。
Acting so servile each and every day. How terrifying. If the object of her love was a member of the opposite sex, she would have become a terrible stalker indeed.
かわいそうなカノンちゃん。私だったらあんなに叱ったりしないわ。
Her words seemed to imply that she was the only person capable of comforting Kanon.
じゃあね、京介くん。
She walks away like a girl skipping through a flower garden. I, on the other hand, am stunned speechless. Why didn't I realize this sooner? How did I not notice Kanon's dreadful mother, always following her around like a shadow? This woman's an abomination. She undoubtedly loves Kanon, and she loves herself just as much. Well done, Kanon. It's 4 o'clock, and she'd just put the finishing touches on her program for tomorrow. Before I can call out to Kanon, Ikiko runs up to her.
今日も良かったわよ。スパイラルなんて氷の削りくずが見えないくらい軽やかだったわ。
そう？
ええ、瀬田さんなんて目じゃないわ。
声大きいよ。
だって本当なんですもん。
All this time, the woman just been complimenting her to death.
あ、上着リンクに忘れた。
取ってくるわ。ここで待ってて。
She jogs off.
兄さん、まだいたんだ。
That's a lovely greeting.
どう思った？
I'm not really sure. I still can't quite tell the difference between the different kinds of jumps in real time yet. Kanon nodded indifferently.
お客さんの大半はわかんないよ。わかってないくせにあれこれ言うの。
That's just how it goes.
そうだね。別に気にしてないからいいよ。
She speaks negligently and sighs uninterestedly.
コーチ遅いな。
She looks up at the clock with narrowed eyes.
いつもああなんだよね。
It's all for your sake, though, right?
何から何までしてくれるよ。
Isn't that a good thing?
助かりすぎて。のんちゃんはわがままに育ちましたとさ。
Apparently, Kanon came to my recent realization a long time ago. While trying to think of what to say to ease Kanon's sealed heart, I find our conversation wandering to my own mother. My mother did everything for me too.
兄さんのお母さん？
I've talked to you about her before, haven't I?
うん。病気してるって。
Right. Anyway, I've been thinking about going to live with her again. Back when I lived up north, she stayed up all night once to sew me a pair of gloves. When I talk about our time together out loud, it sounds like I'm spouting country lyrics or something. We smiled as we shared some noodles and broth. Pretty funny, isn't it?
別に。
No, it totally is. When I came down with a fever once, she rode a bicycle down snowy roads to find doctors and bring them back to our place. Has Ikiko-san ever done anything like that?
ないでもない。
She lowers her gaze and tilts her head, as if trying to recall something. And as if changing her mind, looks back at me.
だったら何なの？
Heck if I know.
何それ？
The only thing I can boast about is my mother. So I did. I didn't mean anything by it. She always projected such a radiant personality, so having one parent rather, never made me feel like something was missing. She risked herself to protect me from that monster of a man. My mother is the most amazing person in this world to me.
でも
She shook her head.
でも私のお母さんは
I interrupted her next words. Your mother is your mother. It's no use comparing yourself to me, or placing the blame with me. Your mother is Ikiko-san. Quite the cheesy line, if I say so myself. Sorry, I've got an Oedipus complex. I mean, I'm always bringing up my mom when talking to girls on group dates, and it tends to freak them out a little. Wow, that was quite a line there, Kyosuke. Kanon unintentionally leaks a wry smile.
今日の兄さん変だよ
Yeah, I am.
自分のことなんてほとんど話さないのに
To be honest, I just don't know how to handle you.
知ってる
Is it that obvious? Kanon gave an unsure smile.
形だけでも兄妹だもん
An apologetic light dwelt in her eyes. But she never once said she was sorry.
カノンちゃん、お待たせ。
Kanon carelessly grabs the jacket that Ikiko-san hands her. I see that a lot. Do you plan on wearing it for the Fruits Gate the day after tomorrow? After I say that, Kanon's mother's face lights up.
私が選んであげたのよね、カノンちゃん。だからお気に入りなのよね。
Kanon jerks her chin and addresses me.
そういうこと
I, her brother in name only, suddenly realize that she is only trying to feign insolence. As she leaves, she turns back.
もう合コン行っちゃやだよ
She was neither angry nor laughing. She came off more like a pouting child. It's quite dark outside now. Hang on, I was just checking the time of the video. Okay, we still got some time. I'm exhausted from dealing with that villainous bunch. I think every last one of them asked me if I planned to join the Yakuza. There were more important things on my mind. I have to go meet up with Kanon. The place is in the Central District. Right, somewhere near the hospital where we caught Saijo. I'd completely forgotten about Mao's existence. I haven't heard anything from Usami either. Lovely child, huh? Let's just put all that in the past. Kanon is waiting for me. Have I gotten lost? This is bad. It's way past 9 o'clock, the time I said I'd meet her. I don't want to make Kanon worry about such little things. The umpteenth time I turned a corner. 1 second. Alright, sorry about that. It is late at night, so yeah. The umpteenth time that I turned a corner of one of these tangled residential streets. Huh? I spotted a crowd in the darkness. Several elderly people were crowded around someone. Is that Kanon? Kanon doesn't seem to have noticed me.
今日はどうもありがとうね。いいクリスマスになりました。
はい
Kanon nodded with discontent.
忙しいのに本当にありがとう。ああ、もったいないや、もったいないや。
Yeah, I can certainly see how this would be an unprecedented event for them. It's not every day that a famous figure skater shows up at some downtown nursing home.
明日は試合なんでしょ？こんなジジババのために遅くまでごめんね。
いえ
She shakes her head, but doesn't make eye contact with anyone. For some reason, I hesitate to call out to her. Kanon has an expression like she doesn't know what to do, and won't take her leave, even though her work is well finished. What change of heart did Kanon have? The same Kanon who was so apathetic towards her fans and the media.
わしにもカノンちゃんと同じくらいの孫がいての。
The people here speak so intimately with her, their voices filled with emotion.
もう何年も会いに来てくれんが、カノンちゃんを見てると元気が出てきたわ。
そうですか。
ほんといいクリスマスプレゼントをありがとうございました。
The woman claps her hands together and bows. Kanon begins to mutter.
寂しいですか。
The elderly people around her can respond with nothing but saddened looks and wry smiles.
だって皆さん自分が育てた子供たちと何か事情があって一緒に暮らしてもらえないんでしょ。
Kanon chose her words as best she could. Stringing those thought-out words together, she continued.
それは寂しくて腹立たしいことじゃないですか。
Still, her audience maintains their polite smiles.
ああ、寂しいとも。
A man speaks up with something akin to pride.
だが、バカ息子にお金を出してもらってるから、偉そうな口は聞けんわ。
Kanon stares into empty space and stays silent.
とても寂しいけれど、そういうことで人を恨むには人生は長すぎるの。
Some of the people present had no relatives at all. As if comforting each other, they all talk about the conclusions that they've come to over the course of their long lives.
感謝してるんですね。
When she says that, they all smile at her in embarrassment.
カノンちゃん、そろそろ帰るわよ。
Ikiko-san hollers from a distance. Kanon nods reluctantly.
それではメリークリスマスでした。
The elderly people go their separate ways in low spirits.
カノンちゃん、お母さんの言った通りでしょ。
何が？
来てよかったと思わない？池部先生も大変満足してくれたわ。
Miss Ikebe was Ikiko-san's old coach, the one who arranged the shop for Kanon.
お母さんも鼻が高いわ。
Without waiting for her daughter's response, Ikiko-san took the liberty to feel satisfied. Kanon,
兄さん。
I've come to pick you up. Let's go.
じゃあ明日ね。うるさい連中に目に物見せてあげましょう。
She left, wearing her unchanging smile of flattery. A solid day's work, eh, Kanon?
疲れてないよ。
I walk home with a discontented Kanon. Alright, let's have sex. Giggity, 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 let's have sex. Anyway.
どうしたの？滑ってるよ。
She smiles wryly. I ask her about the gig while pouring some coffee. How was it? You showed the people of the nursing home your ballet, right?
もういろいろ忘れてた。
Still, they seem delighted.
そうだね。あんなので満足してくれるなんてよっぽど。
She suddenly bites her tongue and changes her mind. Excuse me. Ugh, it's getting too late for me. I gotta wrap it up soon. As long as they're happy, it doesn't matter.
勝ち負けがないならね。
I laugh abruptly.
瀬田さんみたいな競争相手がいないならそれでもいいんじゃない？
I wonder. I sigh as I hand the coffee cup to her.
コーチさ、
Yeah?
私がオリンピックで金メダル取れなかったら死んじゃうって。
Die? I could tell Kanon wasn't joking. And it's not out of Ikuko-san's character either. She relies far too much on her daughter. I wouldn't be surprised if she hung herself. I just think, oh, so she did it after all. And?
いや。
She rubs her legs together, as if enduring the cold.
ただ、なんだろう。そっかって思った。
Man. It seems like Kanon has been building up emotions which she can't convey through words. It won't be a laughing matter if she does die. I smile lightly while saying so.
そうだね。
Kanon smiles along with me. Anyway, go to sleep while it's still early.
明日はうるさい連中に目に物見せてやらないとね。
She says so jokingly and heads for the changing room. A while later, Kanon is asleep on the bed. She peeks out from under the covers and whimpers a little.
本当は明日も負けるかもって思うんだ。
I could sense the sincerity in that sobbing, wounded girl's voice. And she might lose tomorrow. Kanon's fears materialized into reality. It's the first day of Japan's Championships ladies events. Kanon's short program was scheduled directly following Seta's. Seta's performance was tremendous. The more applause she received, the higher her score would be, and the arena's fervor was deafening. She received the highest score in the Japan Championships history and swept the audience up into a whirlpool of excitement. She didn't rely solely on her trademark step sequences. She attempted the difficult jumps that Kanon specialized in and pulled them off magnificently. At the end of her performance, I involuntarily stood up and clapped with raging emotion. How could Kanon feel as she stepped into the rink, watching this new Seta in the kiss and cry? The applause that thundered in the arena was no longer directed at Kanon. Everyone has taken up the bad image forced upon her by the press. There were no boos or scoffs, of course, but the difference from last time was obvious. They chose instead to ridicule her with half-hearted applause, crossed legs, and a symphony of coughs and cleared throats. Everyone looked down upon her with discriminatory gazes, showing their distaste for in a manner befitting the Japanese. Had she caught on to the tainted atmosphere? Kanon's performance lacked spirit. At least, that's how I saw it, and I'm sure the spectators and judges would agree.
ダメだな。
The man in the seat next to me didn't even wait until Kanon had finished to mutter his opinion. Though I didn't like it, I had to agree. It's true that she's lacking in vigor. What happened to her bullet-like speed, rather? Her once magnificent jumps now looked as though they were just barely avoiding being marked as under-rotated. And she calls that edge work? Her legs seemed to be moving up a storm, but to me, it looked like she was just frantically shuffling them about. Maybe she ran out of stamina. During her final jump, a pained expression was plastered on the arena's jumbotron. When the song finished, a few scattered claps decorated the silence of the arena. But not a single person rose. There were no penalties to speak of, but the performance bore none of Kanon's unique charm, the charm that would usually shake one to his or her core. Her program was designed as innately high scoring, so she managed to get second place, but there was more than a 15-point difference between her and the leader, Seta. As it stands, even a layman would call the Worlds a long shot for Kanon. Participation at Worlds may be formally decided by the results of the Japan Championships, but they also take into account the scores of the Grand Prix of the figure skating finals. As the loser of the finals, Kanon would need a combined score this time around that beats Seta's by a hefty amount. It's highly unlikely Kanon will be able to compensate for both the finals and today by trouncing Seta in tomorrow's free skate. In fact, she'll have her hands full just beating Seta at all. Just looking at Seta's technical score was enough to make my stomach turn. The technical score basically represents how well one executed difficult step sequences, jumps, and other elements. Up until now, everyone had predicted that Kanon would hold a monstrous lead with respect to technical marks. But in reality, the difference wasn't so overwhelming. Had Seta sincerely displayed some phenomenal growth, or had the judges handed down a rather lenient judgment? It was probably a combination of the two. At any rate, it was plenty enough to crush Kanon's pride and identity. And above all,
特に話すことはないです。
Kanon's face was displayed on the huge screen. Her cold expression didn't even have a trace of fighting spirit. Kanon was popular both on and off the ice, in a bad way. An assembly of paparazzi and reporters asked her malevolent questions, hoping that she would slip up and say something regretful.
今回やる気は出したんですか？
瀬田選手の演技はどうでしたか？
カノンさん、こっち向いてくださいよ。子供じゃないんだから。
Wow. I would want to punch someone who told me that in the face. They probably figured that if Kanon wouldn't entertain their readers with a performance, then they could probably pull something out of her to give them a few kicks. The crowd and dozens of blinding flashes blocked Kanon's way. Her eyes were glued to the ground, and her gait betrayed that she was enduring pain and stress. I edged closer to Kanon and tugged her frail hand. They redirected their cameras towards me, but I had no time for them.
待って、コーチが来るから。
She whispered into my ear. Ikiko-san looked at the camera shamelessly and apologetically answered their trivial questions. Let's go.
待って、
Let's just leave her.
ダメ。
Why not?
ご飯食べに行こうって言われた。
I followed Kanon, feeling irritated. Ichigo-san was in high spirits during the meal. What happened to the ladylike etiquette she upheld before the media? She revealed her true colors and started ragging on Seta and the judges.
ほんと、カノンちゃんは何も悪くないのよ。
Kanon nodded mechanically, as if Ichigo's words were going in one ear and out the other.
みんな最低よね。気にしちゃダメよ。カノンちゃんの良さは私だけはちゃんと分かってるからね。まだ明日があるんだから落ち込まないでね。優勝さえすればあとはお母さんに任せなさい。必ず世界に行けるようにしてあげるから。
My stomach churns from the nausea. Ikiko maintains this big smile, like it's carved into her face, and clings onto her daughter. With a face as emotionless as a porcelain doll, Kanon accompanied her mother. As I began to feel a bit dizzy, a bizarre circumstance presented itself. The two of them went on ahead out of the alleyway and headed towards the sidewalk on the other end of the street. The traffic light turned green. They began to cross the empty intersection. On the right-hand side, I saw a dark shadow approach. Ikiko-san faced it. Watch out! Was I the one who shouted that? Or was it Ikiko-san who shouted it? The one who got run over? The driver of the sports car was conversing with a woman in the passenger seat and ran through the red light. The grinding sound of the brakes snapped me out of my daze. The tire screech wasn't very loud, so the car must have been going really slowly. I managed to retain my composure despite the shock of the incident. The driver jumped out of the car, shouting, "What the hell were you doing, you idiot? This isn't my fault!" But the traffic signal clearly conveyed the blame. The people gathered around the intersection. Beside Ikiko-san, who was laying on the ground face up, Kanon stood perfectly still. The girl stood like a statue, wearing the face she does when ignoring her mother's cajolery. And then she nodded. Her ankle throbbed in pain.
全然大丈夫よ。
Her mother's patronizing laughter echoed in the dark room. Coach had been hit by a car. She didn't remember much after that. The police came, and she remembered Kyosuke running around in a hurry or something.
カノンちゃん、怪我はない？
ない。
そうよね。私が守ってあげたのよね。とっさのことだったから覚えてないでしょうけど。
I hate this woman, man. However, Kanon remembered the details of the accident clearly. Ikiko hadn't protected her. Kanon saw the sluggish car coming. She yelled, "Watch out!" However, Ikiko faced the car in a sort of suicidal standoff. She pushed Kanon away, and the next moment, she was lying on the ground. It looked more like intentionally slipping and tumbling over in an exaggerated fashion to Kanon. In fact, the car never even touched her. Her head was just barely scratched. She would stay in the hospital overnight to be sure all was well. That was it. Actually, when Ikuko pushed Kanon out of the way, she might have sprained Kanon's ankle. That was a far more serious concern.
ちゃんとうるさいマスコミには伝えておくからね、カノンちゃん。
The mother was chivalrously toppled while protecting her daughter. It was a fabricated fairy tale, but her mind had already decided to paint that fabricated fairy tale as reality. What a person. Kanon had no idea such an insignificant petty human could possibly exist. Remembering that this woman was her own mother froze Kanon's blood.
これで明日のジャッジも甘くなるといいんだけれどね。
Ikuko's chin jerks with a faint grin. All Kanon could do was smile awkwardly. I wish she would just die, she plainly thought. Those lingering sentiments finally crystallized, and Kanon said,
コーチは私のこと大好きなんだよね。
どうしたの？
ずっと好きなんだよね。
もちろんよ。
そっか。じゃあ。
Kanon focuses on the faint echoes of the hospital's corridors. There's nothing within earshot. No one else is in the hospital room. The white bed, the white Ikuko, glaringly distinct against the black darkness of the room. Sweat runs down her temple, trickling down her cheeks and across her neck. It's winter, but it's terribly hot. Kanon's fingers tighten into a fist, and her beating heart hammers against her ribcage. She tries to move, but her feet stick to the floor like they're glued in place. Now, do it. There's no other way. Mother and daughter. The irrefutable bonds of blood. As long as her mother exists, this nightmare will continue. She must break these bonds. Ikuko let her guard down. She could never have imagined her daughter's bare fangs might be turned against her. Kanon stands still, looking down upon her mother. This is the last time she'll see her mother's smiling face. Long ago, she believed that this face, one ruled by flattery and pettiness, was a gentle one. She reflects on her past subconsciously. Kanon had looked up at this face quite a bit as a child.
立派になったわね、カノンちゃんも。
Kanon flushes all thoughts of hesitation from her mind. She won't let herself be fooled again. Ikuko loves herself. She's just using her daughter to fulfill the dreams that she couldn't fulfill herself. Up until now, she's obeyed her mother's instructions. Even though she knew her mother had no talent, she allowed her to be her coach for a long period of time. Kanon didn't reject or revise her mother's free skate program either. She wore whatever Ikuko asked her to wear. She went along with her mother, showing off to the press, even though she felt it was disgraceful. Kanon bites her lip. Her Christmas Eve plans were the last straw. She sacrificed her promise to her brother, the man she loves, for the sake of her mother's image.
これ以上何をすがろうっていうの？
すがる？
私にのしかかろうとしないで。
変なカノンちゃん。
At that moment, Kanon's arm shot out. Like an arrow, it fired at Ikuko's neck. Her vision, her arm, her breath, her knees, her entire body was trembling furiously.
どうして？
No. In reality, Kanon hadn't budged 1 inch.
どうして？
She suppresses a moan as she stands there shivering.
あなたは最低の母親なのに、最低なのに、どうして？
A mother is still a mother, no matter what.
どれだけ利用されてもいいとか思っちゃうのかな。
カノンちゃん？
黙れ！
She explodes in anger.
あなたはいつもそう、ずっとそう、ずっと気づかない完璧な人間で、ずっと自分の正しい世界に住んで、その中で死んでいくだけ。
Ikuko had a frightened expression, as if thinking, has my child gone mad?
でもいいよ。もう分かったよ。分かっちゃったんだよ。
Kanon looks back on her short life. She she had been forced to skate as though it were a natural thing. But even if she was pressured by her mother, the many crowd's applauses were real. Those people's smiles were real.
ありがとうって言わなきゃいけないんだって。苦しいけど悔しいけどおかしいなって思いながらでも言わなきゃいけないんだって。
Kanon glared at her mother in anger and disgrace, but her words continued to flow out endlessly.
たとえあなたが自分のために私を利用していたのだとしても、そこにいろんな感謝や感動があったんだから。
カノンちゃん、落ち着いて。
Kanon shook her head. Any intervention would be futile. I'm talking to myself right now.
私はお金になるんでしょ。いいよ、どんどん稼いで。スケートはお金かかるもんね。あなたが何百万っていうお金を出してくれなかったら今頃浅井カノンなんて誰も知らなかっただろうね。
そんなつもりは。
いいんだよ。本当に好きにして。あなたは私に優しくて誰よりも親切だった。
Kanon mutters as she cries herself out.
もういいよ、お母さん。もう憎むのは終わりにする。
カノンちゃん、
Ikuko says dubiously.
まさかスケートが嫌になったの？
Kanon smiles weakly and shakes her head.
大好きだよ。
そう。
一番になるよ。
Her foolish mother returned once more to her genuine expression. Kanon let out an involuntary laugh.
だってお母さんだもんね。しょうがないよね。
Even if you are crazy. At that moment, Ikiko swallowed her breath in surprise. In Kanon's eyes, the plaster abomination surrounding her mother began to crack.
お母さんはカノンちゃんを傷つけていたの？ね
No one answered her mother.
え、そうなの？
The mother started quivering as well.
カノンちゃん？
She looked into her daughter's face with bated breath. When she realized that contained within was pity towards herself, and the feeling that the only thing left was to just give up, her lips tightened and she blinked a few
か
times.
わいそうなお母さん。誰もあなたのことなんて好きじゃない。だったら私だけが一番になってあげる。世界でただ一人。私だけは味方になってあげるよ。
I'm honored to accept the privileged title of Mom's number one.
いいんだよ、お母さん。
Kanon smiled. If she doesn't smile, nothing will change.
カノンちゃん、私。
After speaking with gasping breaths, her eyes slowly filled with despair. And then, the night wore on. The contest Kanon's mother waged her honor and even life on slowly drew near. Alright. But, that is where I have to end this episode. I think we're probably near the end of Kanon's route, but this episode is over an hour, so I've really got to end the episode here, and I need to get to bed. So, yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you all next time.